Hey, thanks for tuning into my podcast. This is Big Head on the Block, hosted by me, Tim Henderson, aka Big Head. Hey, welcome back to Big Head on the Block. Podcast is going to be focused on end of watch. You ask me, what is end of watch? Every police officer knows what it is, but to the community out there, it's the day that an officer left his house and went out for his tour of duty, whether it be 8, 10, 12 hours, whatever the case may be, and he didn't return home. Imagine your loved one going out to work, your husband, your father, your son, your daughter, your mother, anybody that wears that badge, they went to work thinking, hey, this is just any other day. And guess what? Most of the time it is. But in the state of Louisiana, 580 times officers went to work and didn't make it home. Think about that number. 580 officers historically in Louisiana have went to work, anticipated coming back home that day, but didn't make it for one reason or another. Now, I'm going to specifically talk about Baton Rouge in this podcast, and we're going to talk about the line of duty deaths in Baton Rouge, which was 26. We've had 26 officers and one K-9 killed in the line of duty or died as a result of an incident that happened in the course of their duty. Now, let's put things in perspective, because a lot of times there's a lot of negative attention on police officers, but I want the community to understand one thing. Every time these guys and girls get ready for work, they put that badge on. They are intent on making sure that you have a good quality of life and that they do everything to ensure your safety throughout the course of their tour of duty. And here's one thing that people don't understand about being a cop. As I've said before, it's an inherently dangerous job. Everything you do is an unknown variable. Every moment of every encounter is unknown. Unlike other professions where stuff is mundane, everything is fluid in the police world. And when I say fluid, I mean this. Everything is based on the actual second that you're in, right? You have to be able to adapt to situations. You have to be able to use your intellect. Sometimes you have to use your physical prowess to be able to escape some of these more dangerous situations. That's why you have to be tactically sound, physically fit, mentally sharp. Every day you go to work, all day. Anytime you have an encounter with someone, you are subjected to an amount of violence not seen in any other profession other than perhaps the military. And as I'm bringing these things up, I want everybody to know, think about this for a minute. You judge a lot of cops based on how they respond to you. And I'm going to give you a clear example of what I'm talking about. There's a cop who just left. I'm going to make it extreme. He just left a homicide scene. He saw 2 people that were shot in the face. He decides he wants to go do his report. So he parks in the parking lot all by himself away from everybody. As he's sitting there minding his own business, either because he's trying to reflect on what happened or he just wants some peace, right? They're there sitting in the parking lot, and they specifically went away from everybody, and we don't know the reason. But just say, for instance, you decide you want to go ask this officer a question. As he sees you approaching his vehicle, a lot of things are going to go through his mind. Why is this person coming, number one? Second of all, I parked way over here because I don't want to be bothered. That may be a thought, that's just a human reaction. But most of all, they have to watch your body. They have to watch your facial expressions. They have to make sure that tactically they are prepared for whatever you may do to them or may not do to them, right? They don't know. They don't know why you're coming toward them. They're parked over here by themselves and you're encroaching on them. So an officer may roll down their window and ask if they can help you. And you may have just a very simple question. Hey, I need directions. I'm from out of town. Or, hey, do you know such and such officer? That happens all the time. The reason I use these examples is because of this. An officer never knows what your intentions are. So if he's kind of direct or short at that moment, maybe it's because he's trying to analyze your behavior and what your intentions are, right? So people say, oh, he had an attitude. You may ask the question and go back to your car and tell whoever you riding with, oh, he seemed to have an attitude or he wasn't very talkative. Well, it may be because he's had a rough day, she's had a rough day, whatever the case may be, or they had to wonder why you were coming to them, right? There's a lot of officers that get ambushed now. You really don't know. And everybody looks nice and friendly. And guess what? They're not always. Every person that comes and approaches an officer has to be at least, they don't have to be treated rudely, but they have to be analyzed. And you have to make sure as an officer that you don't let your guard down because you got a 19-year-old female who looks, properly dressed, nice dressed and everything. And then all of a sudden they pull out a gun and shoot you in the face, right? This happens. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen. But how does an officer know if you're that person or if you're just a person that wants directions? So next time you think an officer has an attitude, take into consideration what they may be going through. And maybe they're still thinking about the two people that got shot in the face and killed, and they're having to deal with that because officers don't have the luxury of going anywhere other than to the next call. If you're on patrol and you get sent to a homicide scene, when you leave there, the dispatchers have an expectation that you're going to handle the next call. And guess what? That's what happens. Officers are subjected to a lot of things that they see throughout the day. Then they have to go to the next call. There's no time to reflect. There's no time to regroup. There's no time to say, hey, man, that was really gruesome, and officers don't really talk about this among themselves because I think a lot of officers, we deal with it. I always tell officers, don't get emotionally attached to the scene because if you do, you probably will never make it 30 years. However, some things bother you a little more than others. I can remember a time that I went to a call. I was standing behind a child who was being looked at by EMS. The child supposedly had gotten run over, right? So when I get there, I see the child up and talking, and it's kind of confusing because they said the grandmother ran over the kid. And for the life of me, I don't know how this kid wasn't screaming because when the EMS personnel moved a little bit to the side, the whole side of this kid's face had been ripped open, and you could see clean through their cheek and jaw. It was one of the more gruesome things that I've ever seen. And this kid was probably in the 3 or 4 year old range. I don't remember. Could be a little older. I'm just kind of reflecting back right now. But it's one of those things that as soon as I left there, I had to go take another call, right? So if you think from time to time that you're, talking to an officer and maybe you're not getting the reception that you think you should get, and I'm not excusing officers' bad behavior because they understand they have to be friendly to the public and they should be friendly to the public. But from time to time, they got a lot on their mind. So let's shift back our focus to end of watch. Now, I don't usually read, but I have some information on our Officer Down Memorial page that I want to make sure that I get the statistics right. So if you would allow me now to read some of these line of duty deaths statistics to you. Accidental death, 1. Aircraft accident, 6. Animal related, 7. Assault, 7. Automobile crash, 70. 70 officers were killed in the line of duty in Louisiana as a result of an automobile crash. 24 as a result of COVID-19. 12 officers drowned. Duty-related illness, I don't really know how to categorize that. It says 4. Electrocuted. 4 officers were electrocuted and killed in the line of duty. Exposure to toxins, 2. Falls, 1. Fire, 1. Gunfire, 312. So out of the 580 deaths, 312 officers were involved in a gunfight, a firefight for their life, and they didn't make it through this encounter. That's a whole lot of people and a whole lot of gunfire. The next one, I'm really not sure how to categorize it. It says inadvertent gunfire, and I'm only guessing that maybe this is friendly fire, but don't quote me on that. I'm just reading the statistics off of this website. So 17 were killed by inadvertent gunfire. 21 had a heart attack. 1 had a heat stroke. 26 were killed in motorcycle crashes. Now, I'll tell you this. We had officers killed, several officers killed in Baton Rouge on motorcycles. That is a very dangerous position to put yourself in on a motorcycle driving through this erratic traffic that we have, not only in Baton Rouge, but statewide and nationwide. 10 were stabbed and killed. 2 were struck by a streetcar and killed. 4 were struck by a train and killed. It says 14 were struck by a vehicle. I'm guessing maybe the bad guys were driving and hit the officers and killed them. 11 were killed in vehicle pursuits, and vehicular assault, 26. I don't really understand how to categorize that other than perhaps the vehicle ran into a cop car or ran into the actual officer itself. I know that one of the canines in Baton Rouge. The only canine in Baton Rouge that was killed as a result of a vehicular assault. So those were the numbers on the 580 killed in the line of duty. Now, I did an analysis of the total deaths by month, and the 61 was the number in July. July was the most volatile month. However, there was not a big discrepancy in all of them. September was the lowest month, and that was when 38 officers were killed in the line of duty. Now, there's not a big discrepancy in the amount of deaths per month. Nothing that you can really say, hey, this month is more volatile in general. And to continue to break down the stats in Louisiana, New Orleans was the most violent city. They've had 128 officers that were killed in the line of duty. Baton Rouge, the state police, LSP, and Shreveport appear to be the ones closest to it, but nobody's as close to New Orleans, thank goodness. They've had 128 officers killed in the line of duty. And as I told you earlier, Baton Rouge had 26. I believe the state police had 27. And let me look real quick. I'm having to scan through this. Forgive me for the moment. Shreveport had 30 fallen officers. So those were the closest ones. But New Orleans, very violent city when it comes to officers being killed in the line of duty. Now let's transition back to Baton Rouge. We're going to specifically talk about the officers killed in the line of duty at Baton Rouge. As I previously mentioned, there were 26 officers and one canine. The canine that was killed in the line of duty was Philos, and he was handled by Lieutenant Bobby Glazier. Now, what I like to do before I go too much further into the podcast is do a roll call. I'm going to give you a roll call, and I'm going to mention all the officers that were killed in the line of duty. And I'm going to start from the most recent. From the most recent, you have Sergeant David Poirier, Corporal Scotty Canizero, Lieutenant Michael Godawa, Sergeant Charles Dodson, Lieutenant Glenn Hutto, Corporal Shane Michael Toddy, Corporal Montrell Jackson, Officer Matthew Lane Gerald, Officer Mark Beck, Corporal Christopher Metternich, Detective Terry Melanson, Lieutenant Vicky Wax, Corporal Betty Smothers, Sergeant Warren Joseph Broussard, Officer Charles David Stiegel, Lieutenant Carl Robert Dabity Sr., Police Officer Linda A. Lawrence, Officer Carl Burgoyne, Officer Dennis Heap, Officer Thomas Fancher, Officer J.D. Blackwell, Sergeant Joseph E. Sanchez, Lieutenant George Bannister, Chief of Detectives Frank E. Schoonmaker, Officer Joseph Marino, Chief of Police J.B. Hare. Chief of Police J.B. Hare was killed in the line of duty November 16th, 1911. So that's whenever the first officer was killed in the line of duty as a result of going to work for the Baton Rouge Police Department. Now let's think about this. Chief J.B. Hare, I'm going to read what it says as a result of how he got killed, just to show you every day you go to work, you have no idea what you're dealing with. What I'm fixing to read from you is directly from the page that's dedicated the Officer Down Memorial page. This is what the description about how Chief J.B. Hare was killed. Chief Hare was shot and killed by an officer who had been suspended for reporting drunk to work. When the officer's supervisor attempted to discipline him, he threatened to shoot the supervisor. When Chief J.B. Hare intervened, he was shot by that officer. That officer was then shot and killed by another officer. Chief Hare had been with the agency for 25 years and was survived by his wife and 3 children. So Chief J.B. Hare went to work to do his job in the capacity of chief of police. And look, sometimes chiefs of police have to discipline people. So he's attempting to intervene to help another officer. He's shot and killed. So that day, he wasn't able to make it home to his wife and 3 children because of the result of another officer's actions. That's rare that happens because police officers don't typically shoot each other. However, the first one killed in the line of duty was just doing things in his normal course of duty as the chief of police, which once again tells you, you never know. You always have to be prepared. It's got to hurt a lot more coming internally like that. And I'm sure the family had a hard time dealing with it. So I will say, Chief J.B. Hare, we salute you. Now, the next thing I want to do is give you a breakdown of how the officers were killed in the line of duty in Baton Rouge. If you remember, I told you 26 deaths. 2 of them were attributed to an aircraft accident, 1 to an automobile crash, 2 to COVID-19, 13 to gunfire. 5 were killed as a result of a motorcycle crash, and 3 were killed as a result of vehicular assault. Now, there's really no distinguishing month. There's anywhere from 1 to 4 within a month. And out of the 26 officers that were killed in the line of duty, 23 were male and 3 were female. And you might wonder why there's such a discrepancy. But historically, not so much anymore, but historically, police was a male-dominated profession. It's a little bit more diverse now than it used to be. So that's probably why you see such a discrepancy in those numbers. This is part 1 of a series of multiple podcasts. So what I want to do now is tell you this. In 1996, I became a Baton Rouge City police officer. During the span of my career, which ended in 2021 when I retired as a lieutenant, 12 officers that I worked with or alongside were killed in the line of duty. So I'd like to just mention them before I end this podcast and give you a little insight on my personal experiences with them and things that I knew about these people. And later, we will go in and reflect on the actual incident and other things. So right now, I'm just going to mention the ones that I worked with. Sergeant David Poirier, Corporal Scotty Canizero. They were both killed tragically in a helicopter incident. Both were responding to help out on a vehicle pursuit. On their way home, they wound up crashing and dying. What I'll say about David Poirier is this. David was a consummate professional. He was always willing to help. He was extremely motivated. He was a very good pilot, and he was a pilot that was dedicated to the division as much as he was to being effective. I used him and the whole air support division many times over the course of my career because I found him to be a valuable asset. So Sergeant David Poirier, we salute you. Corporal Scotty Canizero. Scotty, I didn't know as good, but I knew him because I would, from time to time, eat lunch with him and hang out with him because my best friend, Chris Rogers, was a pilot also and later the commander of the division. You know, I found Scotty to be witty. He was funny. He was one of those guys that was a professional, and he really enjoyed his job. The people that were in the air support division, and there were several of them, they were very good at their job. I used to tease them and call them combat ineffective when they first got started, but I utilized them, like I said, many times. And let me tell you, that those guys were very effective. Their division was very effective. So Corporal Scotty Canizero, I salute you. We salute you. Lieutenant Michael Godawa and Sergeant Charles Dotson both died as a result of COVID-19, and both line of duty deaths were tragic in the fact that one of them specifically, Godawa, was on the verge of retirement when it happened. What I knew about Lieutenant Godawa is this. He was witty. He was comical at times. He was a professional. He understood his job. He was good at his job. He was a good supervisor. His people that worked under him liked him. As an officer, he was both competent and effective. And to Lieutenant Godawa, we salute you. Sergeant Charles Dotson was the guy who always looked good. He was dressed good. He was dressed sharp. And look, if you came to work and he thought you looked better than him, this ain't a fact. This is just my line of thought. He's going to go home and change, and he's going to look better because he will not be outshined when it comes to his attire. Now, Sergeant Dotson and I we never worked on a case together because he was a detective and I was just a supporting role in intelligence and uniform patrol and wherever else I was at. But I had the ability to interact with him on several cases. I found him to be very effective as an investigator. I found him to be very knowledgeable, and he kept up with some of the crime trends, and he kept up with what you call the beefs, and he was able to make a lot of good cases. And there's a lot of people that are in jail doing a lot of time now because of Sergeant Dotson's proficiency as a detective. So, Sergeant Dotson, I salute you. We salute you. The next officer that I want to talk about is Lieutenant Glendale Hutto Jr. We referred to him as Hutto. He had kind of a name that just kind of stood, and Hutto was a good enough name, so we didn't call him anything else. When we referred to him, we just referred to him as Hutto. So here's what I'm going to tell you about Hutto. Hutto was a consummate professional. Hutto was extremely knowledgeable. I enjoyed talking to him. I got to interact with him a lot, of all places, at the Chick-fil-A mostly, because we would eat breakfast a lot of times there together, and we would talk. Sometimes we would talk for minutes, sometimes we would talk for hours. Hutto was well versed in all topics. He was highly educated, had several degrees, and I think he even had some in biblical studies. So I could ask him questions about Christianity and other things, and he was always more than willing to engage you with an answer. So he was effective, and when he died, he had went back to patrol, but he spent a lot of years in a crime scene. The people that worked under him in uniform patrol, I know they liked him as a supervisor. He was not only competent, but always did, as much as he could to help them out and make sure that they had a good day of work under his supervision. Hutto, I salute you. We salute you. The next person we're going to talk about is Corporal Shane Toddy. Now, I didn't know Toddy very well. He was a motorcycle cop. He always looked sharp, as most of them guys do. From what I knew of him, and I only had brief interactions with him, he appeared to be very competent in his role as a motorcycle cop, and I kind of knew him here and there whenever he was in uniform patrol. I don't have a lot of content to tell you about him, but Corporal Shane Michael Toddy, I salute you and we salute you. Now, moving on to the next two officers, and both of these were killed as a result of the 2016 ambush, Corporal Montrell Jackson and Officer Matthew Gerald. I didn't know either one of them. We were doing some work where we were doing security at headquarters. They worked at 3rd District, which was at headquarters on Airline Highway. So I did have the ability to interact with Gerald more than I did Jackson. So Corporal Jackson, I just kind of knew in passing. We kind of knew each other. If I'd see him, I'd crack a joke or two with him. But we didn't have any kind of personal relationship. We never ate together or anything like that. But I knew that he was a dedicated professional, and he was really good at his job. And his squad mates and his superiors liked him. Now, Officer Gerald was young. I remember a couple of days before he was killed, while I was at headquarters, I cracked a couple of jokes with him, and he was really good-natured. He seemed smart. He, like many of the new guys, we harassed him a little bit. We cracked jokes on him, but he was good-natured. He took the jokes. He laughed. He just seemed to be a good guy. He was easy to talk to. And like I said, I didn't have a lot of conversation with him because we were in a group when we were talking. But I know that he was really excited about doing this job and being in this career. So to Corporal Montrell Jackson and Officer Matthew Gerald, I salute you and we salute you. The next officer we're going to talk about is Officer Mark Beck. Mark Beck, I knew him when he was in uniform patrol, was a good guy, was proactive. He appeared to be a young cop that was headed for a successful career. He eventually went to K-9. I didn't interact with him a whole lot because I started working day shift and they were out mostly at night. But I do know this. He was a good cop. He was a professional and he was very good at what he did. So to Officer Beck, I salute you. We salute you. The next officer we're going to talk about is Corporal Metternich. He was a motorcycle cop when he was killed in the line of duty. As all motorcycle cops I mentioned earlier, he always had a good appearance. He looked good. He was professional. He was good at his job. I only knew him kind of in passing. We would see each other in a restaurant or at the precinct or something. So I didn't have a whole lot of interaction with him, but I knew that he was capable, competent. So Corporal Metternich, I salute you. We salute you. The next one we're going to talk about that was killed in line of duty is Detective Terry Melanson. I knew Terry Melanson kind of like the other ones. There's 700 or so cops in Baton Rouge, so you're not going to have personal relationships with all of them. I knew Terry to be a good cop. I knew him to be a competent cop. He went into the narcotics division, and I'm guessing it's something that he wanted to do. And I'm going to give you a breakdown of why he wanted to do it later once we move into the podcast and talk specifically. But from what I knew of Terry, he was an extremely nice guy. He was very good at his job. And from what I gather, I didn't have any cases that I worked with him, but they told me he was a good narcotic detective also. So to Detective Terry Melanson, I salute you. We salute you. Now, the last one we're going to talk about today, this is the last one that was killed May 22, 2004, Lieutenant Vicky Wax. Now, Vicky was the first one killed in the line of duty as I became a police officer in 1996. So it was kind of a unique experience for me to try and process this and process how she was killed. She was shot and killed in the line of duty by what I'll refer to as a coward. And the thing about Vicky is this: Vicky ran a lot of extra duties and she helped a lot of officers be able to have a better quality of life. Why? Because she gave us extra duty. She helped us with overtime. Now, she was kind of a mother figure to a lot of people. She was easy to talk to. And actually, I got in a wreck and she came and picked me up after my wreck because I had to go take drug tests and all that kind of stuff. And that was probably the most time I spent with her. It was about an hour and a half. And I come to find out that, she had a really good personality. She was really caring. She was a cop's cop. She was going to take care of police officers and, she expected you to do the same. And that's probably the most interaction I had with her, although I did have several conversations because we worked in the same precinct from time to time. So I really appreciate some of the insight and wisdom she gave me because I always look to the older officers for their opinions and their insight. I didn't always adhere to the things that they said, but, you have to have people that are experienced to give you the knowledge and wisdom to make good decisions and to make sure that your career path is moving in the right direction. So to Lieutenant Vicky Wax, I salute you. We salute you. Now, this is going to be the end of my podcast. And what I'll tell you is this. This will be part 1. So part 2, 3, 4, however many it takes. I'm going to talk specifically about everyone who was killed in the line of duty. And I hope that you'll tune in. And I'm hoping to be able to talk to some of the family members and get some interviews and give you some personal insight on everybody else that was killed in the line of duty. And we'll recap all these officers that I just spoke about. To the 26 officers and 1 K9 that was killed in the line of duty at Baton Rouge City Police, I salute you. We salute you. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Big Head on the Block. I'm Tim Henderson, the host. I look forward to dropping another podcast soon. Please give us any comments, likes, dislikes, or any topics y'all would like to discuss. Thank you. That she helped a lot of officers financially.